Hi, everyone, and welcome to Let's Get Literary, a Wood TV Plus show where we talk about all things books. I'm your host, Madeline Bursma, and today I've got a special romance episode for you in honor of Valentine's Day. Later on, we'll be catching up with a Holland author who just published her debut novel. We'll also be speaking with a local book influencer to get her takes on some romance books. But first, let's talk to a Zealand author who is getting ready to publish a new YA romance novel. And I'm so excited to welcome our first guest, Jessica Foster. Her work includes Andy and the Extroverts. She also has a new book coming out called The Framing Game that's ready for pre-order now and officially comes out in March. Jessica, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Yeah, so let's talk about The Framing Game. Can you give us a little bit of a sneak preview of that plot?
So the framing game, which I have my proof copy with me today, the framing game is basically about a girl named Virginia Benson, and she will do anything to get into Yale. But at the beginning of the book, we find out that she is framed for a crime in the school, and she's unsure as to why anybody would frame her for a crime. And why they would want her to get kicked out of class. And then slowly throughout the book, she realizes how many people she stepped on to get to the top. It's a fun sort of mystery, but at the same time, it's also a romance because the only person who steps up to help her figure it out is her ex-boyfriend, Xander. And he's taking every moment he can to kind of find a way back into her heart. And so it's a fun romp, kind of Gilmore Girls meets Scooby-Doo for young adults.
So much fun. Can you tell me us a bit more about how the Gilmore Girl meets Scooby-Doo kind of comes into play in this novel?
They end up spying on a bunch of different people, which I think happens a lot in both Scooby-Doo and Gilmore Girls if you're really thinking about it. But there's just a lot of romantic tension there and a lot of unresolved feelings, a lot of dramatics. And it all sort of comes to a head, and it's just delightfully messy, I would say.
And what was it that inspired you to write this delightfully messy YA romance?
I write for the fun of it, and so I think if I'm having fun writing it, if I'm laughing while writing it, then maybe people will enjoy reading it. Maybe people will enjoy going with me on this journey, and they will see the humor in it and the heart in it, and that's why I write YA romance.
And of course, this is your third YA romance novel, but you are also, alongside an author, you are also a teacher. How does working as an English teacher impact your writing?
I think it puts me front and center with my target audience, which are teenagers. And I get to see how they interact with each other, how things are different now than when I was a kid. And I also just love being around the messy middle of lives. I love to see that coming of age moment in kids' lives, and I like to be able to translate that onto the page.
Love that. And so then what is your biggest advice for young writers who are maybe interested in writing romance or other types of books or other types of writing?
I think when it comes to teenagers or even a little younger than that, if you're considering writing a book, um, just go for it, really. I don't know if that's really advice, but I think that people get in their heads about how it's so long or how they're never going to finish it. And it's something that you come to the table every day and you work on, and maybe you won't finish it, but you'll never know if you don't try.
Some great advice there. So you got an event coming up. People can get a chance to get a signed copy of your book before it officially comes out. Where can people meet you and get that book?
Yeah, if you're looking for a signed copy and a personalized bookmark alongside the novel itself, then you can meet me in Grand Haven for the Third Coast Author and Book event in March.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, before I let you go, we're talking about romance novels, of course. As a romance YA novelist yourself, what is your favorite romance book?
My favorite romance book is actually called Well Met by Jen DeLuca, and I like it because it is delightfully nerdy. It takes place at a Renaissance festival, and it's enemies to lovers, and it has all of the humor in it.
Awesome. That sounds like a fantastic read. Well, Jessica, again, the Framing Game out this March. Thank you so much for stopping by today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I'm so excited to welcome my next guest, Jade Havenar. Her new book, Brillimous, is out now. It's her first book, a young adult dystopian, set in a world where Earth is mostly underwater. Jade is also my former classmate. Jade, welcome. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks. And so let's first talk a bit about the inspiration of the book. There's some really interesting, unique aspects in there, including the aspect of light therapy. Walk us through what inspired the book?
Yeah, so Brillimous, being a dystopian novel, has that element of maybe this really could happen on Earth, and what would that be like, and how would these characters navigate a situation where most of the Earth is sinking underwater and those water levels are rising. So I've always loved that kind of idea when I was growing up as a reader, of this, what could be. And then the light therapy came in, actually. My husband being a physical therapist, they work with red light therapy a lot for scar healing, and it's become very popular right now for your skin treatments as well. And I took that as inspiration and then pushed it further. What would happen if we were able to internalize these benefits and these kids were able to soak in all the different types of light therapy? You have blue, you have orange, you have yellow, and they all have different benefits. May that be physically healing or for your emotional development and stability, or your calming aspects in your mind. And how might that be this little sci-fi element where we can use those skills to the next level in this survival in this dystopian world.
Sure. Well, that is fascinating. And then also, of course, a big aspect is the water. And you grew up in the Holland area right next to Lake Michigan. Did that play a role as you were writing this book?
For sure. I grew up around the water all my life, being close to the beach and then also being a competitive swimmer. Water has always been a part of my life, and I've always really loved the metaphor and the symbolism between how powerful and strong and sometimes scary the water can be, but also how tranquil and calming and peaceful the water can be. So in Brillimous, you see the water as a threatening aspect, but you also can see it providing comfort sometimes. And the way that each character relates to the water is something that I tried to play into, and how they view this scary thing, but also it's what they know and it's part of their home. So I definitely was inspired by the water in Holland.
Well, and let's hope that Lake Michigan doesn't take over and drown the whole
sure.
Earth. And so, of course, like a lot of dystopian novels, this does have a bit of a romance aspect of it. And we're talking about romance a lot in this episode. So the novel is doing really well in the clean romance category on Amazon. Did you expect it to do so well in that genre?
Not necessarily, no. It's been a pleasant surprise. I always love books with some romance, but I don't feel the need to push things too spicy, as we call it. And I wanted to represent relationships that have their flaws, that are raw and authentic, but also can be something that students or anyone can look to as a positive, healthy example. You have different types of relationships going on in Brillimous, but romance is definitely a key part, and I just wanted to keep it on the cleaner side while you still have some of those goosebump chill first love feelings that we all love.
And then, so you mentioned students, and of course you used to be a teacher. Did that impact your writing process at all?
For sure. Even throughout my own education in college and then my master's degree, I'm learning what readers look for and how they process what they're reading, and then studying different novels, and that played a big role into it. And then also just being around kids and being around, middle and high schoolers especially. I've always just wanted to portray something that they would appreciate, that I know that they would like, that they can learn from, presenting different characters that they can maybe identify with. That's definitely been important to me along the process.
Awesome. Well, Jade, before I let you go, you've got an event coming up in March, a festival you'll be at. Where can people meet you at that event?
Yeah, so I'll be at the Third Coast Book Festival in Grand Haven. It's on March 21st. More details are still being released about that, but I'm super excited. And if you want to come and get a signed copy and get your own book, that would be awesome. I'd love to see you there.
Awesome. Well, Jade, again, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us about your new book, Brillimous, and that is out now.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Welcome back to Let's Get Literary. Now, before we move on to our next guests, we do have to talk about people we meet on vacation. That New York Times best-selling romance novel was just adapted into a movie, which you can find on Netflix. Now, what you might not know, it was actually written by a Hope grad. Emily Henry graduated from Hope College in 2012 with an English degree. She previously told Hope College her education taught her curiosity, and she encouraged students to try everything you're curious about. Now let's move on to our next guests to talk more about romance. And my next two guests are both huge romance fans. We've got Katie Betts. She is a local book influencer who reviews books on her Instagram. That can be found at What's Katie Reading, where she has about 15,000 followers. We also have Katie Lightfoot. She's an executive producer here at Wood TV8, and perhaps the biggest romance fan in the newsroom. Katie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So happy to be here.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. And so, Katie Betts, first, let's talk about your Instagram account. What got you into reviewing books online and becoming a bit of a book influencer?
Typically when I would finish a book, I would actually just take a picture and put a little rating on my personal Instagram account. And then a couple years ago, I was actually living in Maine at the time, and for work I was at a youth camp, and a colleague and guy I went to college with made just an offhand joke, and he was like, "No one cares about these books that you're posting." He's like, "I just have to scroll through your stories." And it really was a lighthearted, funny joke, and I thought, well then, I'll just make my own separate account for people who actually want to hear my opinion. And then a couple weeks later, I just started posting these little graphics of reviews of books I had just finished, and then books that I had finished over the past year because people were curious for more really quickly.
Oh, that's such a fun story.
Yeah.
Did you expect to get so many followers?
No, I had no idea. It kind of happened fast. I made the handle, and then because it was linked through however Meta links things to my personal account, other people had seen it pop up, and I had over 100 followers before I posted my first review. And then after I posted it, within a couple weeks, I had a couple thousand, and it stayed there for a little while, and then it's just continued to grow over time.
Oh, lovely. And so then with that, let's talk about Book Talk and Bookgram. Of course, that's been super big over the past couple years, and it's really helped create this new interest in romance books in particular. What do you both think is really driving that?
I mean, that it's kind of how I got really into it, was around the time of the pandemic, looking through social media, looking for things to read, and just seeing all of these reviews pop up. And so I started, looking into it and just seeing, oh, well, I like this book. And sure enough, I was hooked and started reading way too much of them. But I think it's just a really fun way for people to, it's like a nationwide book club almost. You get to talk about your favorite books with people online and see that someone else had the same thoughts you did, or maybe interpreted one part of the book in a different way. I think it's just really fun and interactive.
It's definitely a community because in other influencer spaces online, people are really trying to make a name for themselves. But I find in the book community, people are really just trying to meet other people who love the same books as them. And that's what makes it so unique, is there's so many people, so many different tastes, and you can really find something that you're looking for. And my favorite thing is always, like you, finding new authors, new books, new things to check out.
What do you think people are really looking for when they find those posts then? Is it that community that they're looking for when you post your reviews and stuff like that?
I do think like part of it's the community. I tend to always love reading books a little bit more if other people are reading them with me and I get to talk about it. But I also think people are looking for a place to be seen. And it's so funny. A lot of my friends that I've made online through having a Bookstagram, they say, oh, I'm so shy in person. Oh, I would never, talk in front of a bunch of people. I just like to stay home and read. And I think that Bookstagram and this online community, whether it's through Book Talk or Instagram, has given them like a place to feel seen and also be known by other book lovers and people who love the same thing that they do.
And so then there are so many subgenres of romance, and one that's become super popular, especially online, is hockey romance. And both of you are super into it. What do you think really gets people interested in that subgenre?
Well, I guess I don't really know for everyone else. For me, I love it so much because there's always the characters that are written are always so interesting, and I think it's fun to see, whoever the lead male character is, the hockey player in most stories, interact with their team and like their friendship, and you kind of get this feel of how fun and goofy they are, and then you get to see them as well fall in love and how they treat women, which in most of these books is very well. So I don't know, it's just nice to see, I guess.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think specifically like hockey stands out from other sports genres of romance even because you have like these big, brooding, muscular, athletic men who, they're playing hockey, like they're fighting each other. Some of them don't have teeth. It's kind of crazy. And yet in romance books and in the setting, you get to see that they have a really soft and tender side. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of the series that I've read, like the friends that they're constantly with in the background, like they play on the same line as them. And that bond that's there on the ice, and then the found family, that trope comes up a lot in hockey romance. That's with their teammates. You really get to see like these almost scary or overly masculine men that we portray in media become soft, approachable to women, and then have deep, meaningful relationships with other men. I don't think there's like anything more attractive than seeing guys have healthy relationships with their friends and family.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's like it kind of reworks the way you kind of view masculinity and debunks toxic masculinity in a professional sports setting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I completely agree.
And so finally, I asked everyone to bring their one of their favorite romance books. And I know, Katie, you brought a couple hockey books. Let's start with you. What are your favorite romance novels?
Okay, well, these are the ones I had physical copies of. If we wanted to go through this, I could be here for an hour, so I won't do that to everybody. But I did bring the first two books of the off-campus series, L. Kennedy. These are hockey books. They're college hockey books, not professional hockey books, but they still kind of follow those same lines. The deal is the first in the series, and I recommend starting at the beginning. But The Mistake is the second one, and I brought it because this is actually my favorite in the whole series. It's my favorite couple, John and Grace. And then obviously this has Hannah and Garrett, and it's very popular. I believe it's being turned into a series on Prime soon. But it's worth the read, worth the hype. And there's 2 other books in this series, and then a whole spin-off series with another 4 books. So lots of content there, and it's amazing.
And then Katie, going on to you, I know you said you had a hard time choosing, but what book did you bring for us today?
I brought my favorite romance that released in 2025, and I figured a lot of people might not know what this is. I'm a Berkeley romance influencer, and so they send me books in the mail, and that's how I discovered Mimi Matthews. But she writes historical romance, but books that really portray strong, independent women during the Victorian setting. And often her books also have mysteries and other elements. So it's really fun to see these like strong, heroic women stand up in think of like Jane Austen's setting. But this one is about, it's the second in a series. The first one in the series is called Rules for Ruin, and it is excellent as well. But these women, the academy that they attended actually trains them in self-defense. And so we have Nell, who is one of the headmistresses or the assistant headmistress at the academy, training younger women under her. And I always forget the names of the men right after I finish. Miles, who he is a newspaper editor and gets wind that something else is going on at this secret academy that's training women in self-defense. And so he ends up trying to find a news story, and they end up in a room alone together, which is a big no-no back then. So to keep everything clean, and so her image isn't harmed, they have to enter into a marriage of convenience, where immediately after, one of his reporters is killed, and they work together to solve the murder mystery, all while falling in love and using her wonderful self-defense skills along the way. It's very fun.
That sounds like a great read. I'm going to have to check that out. That sounds fun.
I love a good marriage of convenience.
Me too. Definitely one of my favorites.
One of my favorites.
Yes, right up there with hockey.
And if you have a hockey, that's a marriage of convenience.
Yes, those are the tops.
Top tier.
Well, so the one that I brought was It's a Countess Below Stairs by Ebba Ibbenson. It's a historical romance set during the Russian Revolution. It's about a Russian countess who has to flee to England. She ends up getting a job as a maid which is run by the very handsome Rupert. So it's a very great, clean romance. I'm not a big romance fan, but this is actually my favorite book of all time. I've read it like a dozen times, so highly recommend that. Well, Katie and Katie, thank you so much for taking the time today and talking about romance books with me.
Anytime.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I could talk about romance books for hours.
Thanks for watching this latest romance-themed episode of Let's Get Literary. As always, there will be a replay of this episode on our website, woodtv.com. For now, I'm your host, Madeline Bursma, and keep reading, West Michigan.